Welcome back, guys. All right. Kind of an exciting day. So, it's been about a week or so since this tank was set up. You can see that some things have grown in, the fish have been added. I pulled about 50 or so adult shrimp out of my Skittles tank setup. That was as many as I could get. The rest of them are probably clinging to some of the floating plants that I've given away to people as I got tore apart the tank. I did introduce fish in here pretty quickly thereafter. Continued to monitor the tank. It's the only time really I'll test a tank is right after I've set it up, just to make sure. I do keep a really close eye on the fish and shrimp. If anything's going a little funny, you'll usually know it pretty quick. But things have been relatively stable in here. No spikes of ammonia, nitrites, or anything. Still early, so we'll give it some time. Tank looks good. I'll do a quick walk around with it in a little bit to show you how things are growing in and some of the changes. You can clearly see there's a few more plants in here than there was last time you saw this tank. I took a couple of cuttings from some of the other tanks in the house and planted them around. The temple grass is starting to grow in nice. If you're really observant, you might notice there in the upper right-hand corner, there's a bag of fish sitting in there. So we're going to add our new live bearers today. I just wanted to go over a couple of things though. New tank setups. I don't know how much of it I talked about in the last video. You do need to keep an eye on them. Dirted tanks are really stable tanks. At least my dirted tanks have been. I don't think that's because of anything special or different I'm doing. I think that's just the nature of a dirted tank. But that's not to say that you don't have to pay attention. Even if you don't own a test kit, you should be paying attention to your water. You can very clearly see when there's problems with certain things. If you have sponge filters and they're bubbling away, and you can see almost like a foam where the outlet is, and there's a bunch of bubbles there that aren't popping right away. They're just kind of clustering around. That's telling you that there's something going on with your water, and you need to pay attention. So anytime you set up a new tank, dirted, gravel, filtered, unfiltered, whatever it is, for the first little while until that tank settles in, you should keep an eye on it, especially if you've already added inhabitants to it. Now, this tank didn't go off without a hitch. I did have a problem. I lost one of my longtime fish that I've had in here. I had a little habrosis, I believe it's called, pygmy cory. Not the typical ones you see in the stores that are almost like a mid-level water fish. Same size as those, very small, but it's more of a bottom dweller. Spends more of its time poking around, looking for food around the rocks and weeds and everything else. I had him since my eco bowl upstairs quite some long time ago. He's made the transfer into every single tank. I'm not sure what happened this time. I noticed the other day his swimming was erratic. It almost looked like he lost some kind of function out of his tail. So I carefully pulled him out and acclimatized him to a hospital tank I have set up, and left him in there overnight. Figured I'd have a closer look at him in the morning to see if I could see anything, and he unfortunately didn't make it to the morning. It might have just been the case that it was an older fish and the stress of moving into a new environment is what did it. Maybe he got underneath of a rock or something as it shifted positions. I'm not sure, but unfortunately he didn't make it. The shrimp in here are doing fine, even though it is a really, really, really new setup and it's probably far too early to have shrimp in here. My saving grace is all of the plants and the wood and stuff like that have been in other tanks, so there's lots of organisms for them to feed on. There's lots of food in there. I feed this tank a powdered food every day just to make sure that there's enough food in here for the shrimp that are in here. I'm not particularly concerned about the shrimp in so much as this is a shrimp breeding tank. It's really not. It's my cull tank. This is where I put all my shrimp that I feel don't meet the standard that I want to keep in my other shrimp breeding tanks. As yet, there's pretty much only red ones in here, a couple of wilds in here. I really haven't started culling my other tanks. If you've watched the other videos, you know that my orange tank has not done well for breeding. weird things going on in that tank. Still haven't figured it out. And my snowball tank, although it's doing very, very well at breeding, we're not at a point where I'm going to start culling yet. I don't have that many shrimp. I lost a lot of them in an accident. So we're here with this. They're doing well. I've seen lots of molts in the tank. I did lose one shrimp. I think actually it was one of my Amanos. I'm not sure why. Came down a couple of days later and just found him backside up. I think it looked to me like he suffered from a bad molt and couldn't get out, but very hard to tell. So I'm going to pick the camera up. I'm sorry this is going to create all kinds of issues and distortion and weird things we're looking at. I just wanted to bring us in closer here to get a look. We can see plants are growing in well. Let me just zoom back out a little bit while we do this. I moved this plant here. This is the one I had in the far right corner, and I decided to move it after I got the light up here and things positioned. I didn't like it. I wanted it back in full light, so we put that there. You can see it's starting to look healthy already. This is another one that I moved out of the orange sun-kissed tank. You can see the leaves are okay here. We actually have a couple of new ones. And in here, this was probably on the verge of dying, but look at this. We got a brand new leaf coming up here. So we might have saved those after all by moving them into another tank. I'll go around the corner here. You can see I put I think this is like a broadleaf water wisteria, something like that. I don't remember what it's called. You think I would? So I've just taken some clippings and dropped this in here. Hopefully that'll take off and it'll provide us kind of a big canopy around that rock. And if I go around to the other side, sorry, I am deliberately trying not to show you the fish just yet. If I go around to the other side here, and I show you the temple grass. Now, there's a lot, this is growing in pretty good. Now, granted, this isn't all from those little tiny pieces I took. I took several pieces and planted them over here. But you can see they're doing well and healthy. This should grow in nice and thick. Catappa leaves in the back, as always, when I do tanks, I always put catappa leaves in. I just think that sorry about that, guys. I just think that the antibacterial, antifungal properties that those leaves have are worth their weight in gold in a new tank setup. So I always try to make sure I get some tannins in the water. So really there isn't much to talk about in this tank as far as the setup goes. Everything went pretty smoothly. Like I said, couple of minor deaths, nothing to be really alarmed about. It was an old fish and a shrimp that might not have just made it out of his molt. Everything else has been going fine. I've only got red root floaters in here at the moment. I dropped in a couple of water lettuce just to have a couple in every tank, but I'm not going to let them grow like I did in the other ones at all. Hopefully this sage starts to take off. A little bit too soon yet to see if there's any runners coming or anything like that, but we'll get there. The fish are a little small, so it's going to take a little bit of time for them to get to a breeding size. However, that should happen probably within the next 6 months or so, we hope. And by then, this tank should be very healthy, very well grown in. The substrate at that point should be working well as a filter, and it should be starting to take on a life of its own with microfauna and bacteria, that sort of thing, all those important things that we want in water quality. I'll have to replace the light. I typically stick to the same light and relative same lighting levels in all my tanks, but I usually use this one as a setup light. I've always had trouble with this light controlling algae. It just doesn't seem to have a setting on it that works for me. But when starting a new tank, this light just seems to promote that growth much faster than the other ones. So I like to have this light up here for a month or two as the tank starts to get established and the roots start to grow, the plants start to bed themselves in, and then I'll swap it over to a more permanent light with a glass canopy on it as well. So no nearite snails in this one as yet, because they do have a tendency to escape. They're the only snail I've ever bought that leaves the aquarium and falls on the floor. I don't understand why. My mystery snails have never done that. My pet snails, for the most part, I never see them do it. Just the stupid nearite snails. And I've never, every single tank I own, if I haven't put a lid on it, a nearite snail has got out and died. Never understood why. So we're gonna avoid that loss this time, and we'll just buy nearite snails once we get a lid put on it. I may at some point down the road grab some house plants, some what is it, devil's ivy, potmos. I'll never say that properly, and just get them in the water with the root system as also as a filtration. But like I said, this has got this is one of the only tanks I've got that has a canister filter on it, and that's specifically for the purpose that I do intend to have probably an overpopulation at points in this tank if I'm going to use it for breeding. This is to be done for fun. This isn't meant to be, this isn't intended to make a bunch of money off of. I'm not breeding these fish to make a profit necessarily. More for just the enjoyment of it. And if I have a few extra babies that survive over time, I'll sell them off to the stores with the shrimp and the other things. But I guess we're probably getting about time to get those fish in. They've been sitting there in that bag for a little while now. They've come a very long way. Looks to me like they've been in transit for probably about 3 days or so. So I went with koi kotaku, I believe is what they refer to them as, swordfish. Really nice colorations on them, but what I was surprised by is the fact that when they came in, these ones do not look like the ones I had intended to buy, although they are by the right name, just the picture is somewhat different. Now, I do have some other fish in here. I know some of you are going to say, oh my goodness, you should be putting them in a hospital tank. Yeah, I suppose there's that. I could do that. I am going to try not to pour too much of this water in there, that's for sure. We're going to try and net them out as best as I can. And we'll leave the rest of this all behind. Now, I think what we're going to do first, get that, there we go. Come here, guys. There we go. I think we're going to end up taking them a couple at a time by the look of things. So there we go with the one. So what I did is I requested to have 3 females and 1 male. Anytime you're dealing with live bearers, you really want to have a much higher population of females than you have of males. Otherwise, the males will harass your females, oftentimes to the point of death. And that's not something you want in your breeding tank. Yeah. These guys definitely look a little worn out. It's going to take a little bit, I think, to get them in good shape. Did we miss you? We missed you. All right. So we're going to have to go with some good quality food and just keep them all healthy. You can see that male probably doesn't look as happy as I'd like to see him look. This is unfortunately one of those things you don't know sometimes when you buy fish online. This is not a place I've dealt with before. They do have pretty good reviews. I'll have to have a closer look as we go along. But I do got to say that male looks a little bit on the thin side and a little bit off. But we'll keep our eyes on him. He'll probably color up and fatten up pretty quick with the diet that I'll give them. Let me just get in on them a little bit. so we can see them a little better. There we are. Here's our male down here. Now, a lot of you are going to point out the obvious. Here we go. We'll go over here. We're going to look at one of the females. She looks pretty good. So these are supposed to be koi swords. Now, I thought they were all going to be white and orange. And that is not what has turned out. However, we'll make this work. They're good looking fish. I like them. Yeah, there's our male. You know, I'd say of the bunch, he's probably the one that looks a little bit worse for wear of all of them. The other two females have run around here and hid. We'll be okay. That one is a little larger than the others. So we'll come back to this in a little while. We'll see what their colors look like in a week or so from now. Get some time to fatten them up. Let them adjust to their tank. Now, yes, I know some of you are going to talk about the fact, I was going to touch on this a second ago, about the fact that there are shrimp in here and they're going to eat the shrimp. Yes, I am aware that they will chase after the smaller shrimp as time goes on and they get more comfortable in the tank. That's okay. This is the only tank I really have available for Skittles shrimp. As it grows in, there'll be lots of places for them to hide. I had community fish in the last tank, and admittedly, I thought at one point that all the shrimp in that tank had died, and here I am. I've pulled out, I think it was about 50 some odd adults out of that tank and dropped them in here. I had no idea there were that many of them left in the 20-gallon tall when I dismantled it, so I'm sure they'll survive in here just fine. So we're going to give them time to acclimatize. I'll probably dim the light down significantly now that they're in here and let them adjust and get happy in their surroundings. And maybe we'll revisit this tank in a month or so. We'll see what it looks like. But I kind of thought you guys would like to see where we're going from here. I'm not sure where that male went. Oh, there's that old mystery snail. He's always around. He went off in the back and hid. And the girls, they've gone around the corner. They look all right, though. I think we're going to do okay. I don't see any obvious signs on them. I have to have a closer look at that one. But they seem to be okay. We'll get them fattened up. I mean, they've had a long travel, so I didn't expect them to look perfect when they came in. We'll give them a little bit of time, and I'm pretty sure they'll fatten up and they'll look 100% pretty quick. So take care, guys. Until the next one.